Food on demand takeaways, DoorDash price parity, and Meredith is heading to Hollywood. That's all ahead on this week's Digital Restaurant. The Digital Restaurant works like this. We're going to ask each other 5 questions about headlines that have caught our attention here at Food on Demand, but also in the news, that affect restaurants, off-premise, and technology, that tie back to our book series, Delivering the Digital Restaurant. Are you ready? Let's go. Hey Meredith, how you doing?
I'm really good, Carl. How about you?
I'm losing my voice.
You know, it has been a busy week here at Food on Demand. This is one of our favorite conferences because everyone here is trying to go after the same opportunities and solve the same problems. And so there's just awesome best practice sharing and tackling everything together. I love it. So I can see why your voice might be at its end.
I know I've been doing a lot of talking, but we've also been doing a lot of listening. And we want to start this week's edition by featuring a few videos actually that we captured, because we know everyone loves to hear some of the excerpts of what we captured, and sometimes we put them out on social media, but we particularly enjoyed the first sessions on Wednesday. And we're going to start off with Savneet at Par and some thoughts he had. So before anything else, let me play this video and then we'll talk about it.
But I just think we're so early in that trajectory of change that the secular shift is too big, and so we'll look back down the road and say, well, that spike during the pandemic is going to look really small 5 years from now.
So food on demand is here to stay, as well as off-premise.
Yeah, I really love this quote. And actually, all of the CEOs alluded to it a little bit, that we're still at the front end of delivery growth here in the US. And there's a lot of room for it to continue to become a bigger and bigger part of our lives, which seems hard to believe after what we've been through in the last few years of the pandemic and the massive rise of digital and delivery in the restaurant industry so quickly because of everything that was going on. But I think all of the CEOs echoed that we will continue to see growth, and we're in the very early innings.
Reminds me of that quote we talked about last time, remember, about the amount of restaurants that are still not on even third-party delivery. So there's some room to grow here, I think it's fair to say.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, so then we also wanted to feature our friend Michael over at Kitchen United. Let's hear what he had to say about this.
I'll say this, if we think back to the mid-90s, and if Amazon's big idea was that you can go to a website and choose any book that you ultimately want, and they're going to send out a local driver to go pick it up from Borders or Barnes & Noble, and that $16 Michael Crichton hardback, by the time the transaction fees are added in, by the time the actual price of the book is actually increased by 20% to offset the take rate, the fees, the standard $5 delivery, that you're paying $30 out the door, and that's the big value proposition ultimately to the end customer. That you're paying $30 for a $16 book that you can go to Barnes & Noble or Borders or your local bookstore. I doubt that they're the 5th largest company in the world currently. I think that ultimately what I believe the analog that Amazon sets for us is that what they created was a distribution network based on sound tech, which many here are developing. Been a core focus of our business is that ultimate logistics platform that makes the whole ecosystem work.
This, honestly, hands down, was my favorite quote from Food on Demand. I absolutely love it. And when you couple it together with the first one from Savneet, I think you can see that part of what drives adoption to greater digital engagement with consumers in the restaurant industry and more delivery is fixing this fundamental problem of how do we do it in a way that's much more economically viable and makes more sense for the consumer. And a lot of folks here talking about different ways to attack that problem, whether it's bringing the cost of the actual logistics down, whether it's batching things together. Michael went on to say, actually, that if you look at an Amazon van that's out delivering things, they're delivering $1,400 of merchandise per hour. And when you compare that to what's happening in restaurant right now, because your typical driver's doing 1, maybe 2 deliveries an hour at a $30 per order value, the merchandise going out in that order is $30 to $60. Well, just that right there tells you there's a huge amount of opportunity to change how we're going about this. And as we bring that cost down, that's going to be one of the things that drives adoption.
Yeah, I moderated a panel on hybrid delivery, and it was fascinating just to hear how the panel was saying, look, if we help utilize better logistics practices in food delivery, that's going to overall improve the guest experience. And I think it was a really popular panel because we're starting to get more conversations happening about how we can make delivery more effective for everyone in the ecosystem. Okay, another video, Meredith. This one we particularly enjoyed as well. Let's listen to it first. This was Marianne over at Smoothie King.
You're looking at an 18%, 20% rate that they're charging. There is going to be a time, and I do know that restaurants are working on this now. Some are already putting it in place, where the consolidation of services across restaurants, and it's discussions that we're having with some people within our category, outside of our category, of consolidating of services, so that we can bring down and maybe look to a third-party provider that would reduce their fee down to 8 to 10%. 18% is really tough when you're looking at margins, particularly from our franchisee standpoint. They have a hard time supporting the third-party delivery services when they see 18% coming out of what their margin of a 25% might have been.
Wow, 18 to 8%. Now, that might be a bit of a pipe dream, but it's a bold ambition.
It is a bold ambition. And I think I have seen very few approaches that get down to that low of cost. My own excluded, of course, that empower delivery, but there are very few ways to bring delivery costs, like literally physical logistics of driving the food to a person, down to 8%. So I don't know, maybe she has some tricks up her sleeve, but very interesting discussion. Everyone really reacting to that take rate from the delivery companies.
If one industry will figure it out, it will be the restaurant industry. We're always trying to find different efficiencies. And I think this year's focus around back of house optimization is certainly continuing on here at Food on Demand. And we'll certainly see whether we can find ways to be able to help restaurants make the overall economies work. But whether it comes in reduced fees or not, time will tell. Okay, next question, Meredith. You're going to Hollywood. You've been doing something a little bit recently in the background called Special Delivery, and I believe you're an executive producer. Tell us more.
Yeah, I'm super excited about this announcement. Roku announced this week at the New Fronts, which is like the upfronts, but for streaming media, that they have picked up a show called Special Delivery, which is a show that I've been working on with Dunray Vaughn for quite a while now. And what the show does is bring all of the things we love about competition television and food TV, and then have it result in a virtual brand at the end that you can order via your remote control. So if you've ever been watching, I don't know, The Great British Baking Show or Top Chef or any of these shows that you watch that you think, that food looks so good, I wish I could have it. Guess what? Now you can. So the show will air in 2024. So still a bit of work to do to bring it to life, but an exciting announcement this week, nevertheless. And
if you're looking for a English host of any kind, I might be available. You just need to drop me a line.
You do have a lovely voice. The audiobook is very, very good.
Thank you.
Now, from a virtual restaurant, food industry, digital delivery perspective, what does this show mean? Why is it happening? I think one of the things that we're finding in virtual restaurant brands is that just throwing something up on the third parties and hoping for sales might get you a few orders, but it's not going to generate the kind of repeat that a strong consumer engagement with a brand, real brand love, is going to create. And a show where America can co-create the celebrity and therefore the brand at the end, I think has real potential to end up with a virtual restaurant brand that consumers can relate to and want to have as part of their lives on an ongoing basis. All right, Carl, next question's for you. So a survey came out about how delivery and digital and pickup and all these things are working in fast casual, and what were some key takeaways from the study?
Yes, this one came out on QSR, and I'll bring up this here so we can have a look at some of the charts from the survey, Meredith. Let's have a look here. So it's about the state of guest experience, and they surveyed a whole range of different guests associated to the way in which they were feeling about the pickup experience. And so if I just go to this one here at the top here, you'll see, first of all, a range, but relatively high range of each of these different brands here, from Chipotle to Five Guys to Panera to Qdoba, talking about how easy it was for shoppers to be able to find a designated pickup area. Now, you might think this is rather basic, but for me, I still think this is a huge area of opportunity for many restaurants in this space. But it seems certainly for these brands that most customers are easily able to find a place where pickup was available. So the headline, I think, from this particular news article is that generally a lot of these established brands are doing it really well. One thing I did want to point out was actually when you go down a little further here was this piece. The percentage of shoppers who reported interacting with employees was part of the pickup process. And here you see a bit of disparity. You'll see, for example, Panera Bread at 36%, Five Guys at 96%. And I think all of us know in the pickup experience, sometimes you just want to come in and go, but sometimes it's difficult to actually figure out which item is yours, if there isn't the appropriate marking as to how to find which package is yours. And I was at a Panera Bread this week, and I remember waiting around, wondering exactly when I was going to be able to have my package. And I had to go up a couple of times to see exactly where the order was. So I think there's something here about if you're not going to have your staff actually supporting the pickup process, make sure there's still some form of digital interface, maybe a text message of some kind, or some kind of buzzer if you've ordered in store, to notify the customer when indeed their order is ready. But maybe some opportunity in this space. But I thought overall, fast casual is clearly doing some good things in this area. Okay, next area that we'd like to talk about, and this kind of you're going to tie into the DoorDash results this week. But the question we wanted to bring up was, are restaurants winning the first party game? How are you going to tie this one together?
I just thought this was so interesting. All the earnings results coming out this week, both from DoorDash and all the restaurants. And that DoorDash, first of all, great job, DoorDash. You beat all your numbers. You did a fantastic job. Orders are up 27%. Really amazing. GMV for the year, they're now expecting to be well above $60 billion, which is incredible. Continued growth happening on the platform. However, they did note that C-store and grocery are outgrowing restaurant. So what that tells me is while orders are up a lot, probably mostly it's the new categories that they're adding, C-stores and grocery. Unfortunately, they don't break that out in their numbers, so we don't know for sure, but at least the commentary suggests that that's the case. And then when you loop that together with the earnings that are coming out from the likes of McDonald's and Yum and Chipotle and all the other restaurants in this space, and they talk about their digital sales and how much their digital sales are increasing, these chains are reporting digital sales 30%, 40%, 45% of their sales happening through digital channels. Now, of course, some of that includes the third parties, but a lot of that is essentially known customer. So either the first party ordering channel, first party pickup, or kiosk, where they're able to tie that consumer directly to a transaction and start developing that data. And what's interesting here to me is that these restaurant companies are becoming digital e-commerce companies, of course, as we always say, and they are using that data to drive their growth. They all had excellent top line and bottom line growth, and they're doing it profitably. So DoorDash lost $162 million in the quarter. Yum and Chipotle and McDonald's all made tons of money. So I think very interesting and suggests that these big restaurant chains are really learning how to shift consumer behavior over to first party. Okay, this is a doozy, Carl. The article came out last week from Joe Guskowski saying that DoorDash is calling for price parity. Tell us what that means and what we think about it.
Well, I can tell you that for all the restaurants and some of the franchisees that I've been speaking to here at Food on Demand, there's blue murder being shouted about right now. There is a lot of frustration and there's a lot of concern happening, I think, in our industry in relation to some communication, certainly from this article, but also quite honestly, hundreds, if not thousands of letters that have been sent out to merchants that are working with DoorDash to talk about the way in which they're pricing their third-party prices relative to their first-party or on-premise pricing. So we all know that marketplace orders are typically higher priced. I mean, most restaurants are extending prices in some way, shape, or form, at least to perhaps cover the fees. So some of the DoorDash contracts here are actually relating to a particular range. Some might say 0 to 20% that they can only work within. And now DoorDash are saying, well, if you're going above those thresholds, we're going to actually reduce your presence on the marketplace. So you're not going to get as high a search ranking. You're not necessarily going to appear as frequently if you don't stay within those ranges. Now, there's some conversation around DoorDash actually saying that prices need to be the same And I think this is really coming to a place when it comes to takeout orders. Now, in Joe's article, they reference the fact that there's a particular concept in Chicago where a banner on the DoorDash listing said, menu matches in-store prices, get the same price as you would in-store on DoorDash. And that the company is trying some in-app labels with select restaurants. So on one hand, you can understand what DoorDash are doing in the sense that they're trying to support the value that their customers on the platform can get when ordering through DoorDash. But on the other end, there's a level of, I'd say, naivety here on the reality of economics through marketplace orders. In fact, the Digital Restaurant Association have commented, and I've got some of their notes here associated to this article and what DoorDash have put out there. And what they're really positioning for is more transparency to the end consumer around the fees. And so let me read a line here, if I may, from their response. When customers cannot see the often 30% in commission that restaurants have to pay delivery services, customers don't understand that keeping prices the same for delivery as in the restaurant is a recipe for financial ruin. And I think there's a game of chicken emerging, Meredith, where this is going to be a situation where some of the bigger brands out there are going to have to face up to determining whether they're going to react to these letters from DoorDash and how they're going to treat this situation, because ultimately there is a big question mark here associated to the future for marketplace pricing. And I suspect the folks that are most interested in what's happening here and are perhaps sitting back with a smile on their face are the gentlemen and ladies over at Uber Eats. I'll leave it there. All right. Well, that's it for this week's Digital Restaurant. We'd love to hear your thoughts around some of the comments, whether you'd like to be on Meredith's show in Hollywood. I'm certainly putting my resume into the group there. But if you have anything you would like us to cover on a future edition, please let us know. We're always interested to hear from you. But as ever, thank you for listening.
The Digital Restaurant Podcast is available for you to follow and subscribe wherever you listen to your podcasts. Watch us, rate us, and subscribe to The Digital Restaurant on YouTube, and follow along on all our social media Digital Restaurant channels. Thanks for listening.